Welcome to the channel Rare Coin Finder, and today, we are about to take you on a journey that will completely change the way you look at the loose change sitting in your drawer, your old coin jar, or even that forgotten piggy bank collecting dust on your shelf, because what we are revealing today is not just a story about coins. It is a story about millions of dollars hiding in plain sight, a story about ordinary people stumbling upon extraordinary treasures, and a story that might just make you run to check every single nickel you have ever owned, because the coin we are starting with today, the 1999 D Jefferson Nickel, has stunned the entire numismatic world with a value that reaches up to a jaw-dropping, almost unbelievable $79 million. And yes, you heard that correctly, $79 million. For a nickel, for a 5-cent coin that most people would toss into a tip jar without a second thought, without even glancing at the date, without ever imagining that this tiny piece of metal could represent a life-changing fortune that most people will never see in their entire lifetime. Now, before we go any further, I want you to do something right now. Go grab your coin collection, check your old jars, rifle through that forgotten change dish by your front door, because by the time this video is done, you will know exactly what to look for, and more importantly, you will understand why some of the most valuable coins in American history were not locked away in vaults or displayed in museums. They were circulating freely, passing through hands, getting spent on candy bars and bus rides, completely unrecognized, completely underestimated, and completely priceless. And here is the thing that makes today even more exciting. We are not stopping at just one coin. We have two more incredible Jefferson Nickels coming up after this one, each one more shocking than the last. Each one with a story so dramatic it will leave you absolutely speechless. So do not click away, do not skip ahead, because the coins coming up later in this video carry secrets and values that will make your jaw drop so hard it might not come back up. And trust me, you do not want to miss a single second of what is coming. But right now, let us dive deep into the legend of the 1999 D Jefferson Nickel. To understand why this coin is worth what it is, you have to travel back to 1999, a year that felt like the edge of history, a year buzzing with the electricity of the approaching millennium, with Y2K fears spreading across the globe, with technology reshaping every corner of human life, and right in the middle of all that chaos, the United States Mint in Denver, Colorado was striking nickels by the millions, coins meant to flow into cash registers and vending machines and parking meters. Coins meant to be spent, not saved, not studied, not treasured. The Denver Mint in 1999 was operating at extraordinary capacity, producing enormous quantities of coinage to meet the demands of a growing economy. And within that massive production run, something happened, something that the Mint's quality control teams were never supposed to let slip through, something that transformed a handful of perfectly ordinary 5-cent pieces into objects of extraordinary rarity and desire. The 1999 D Jefferson Nickel, in its most collectible form, is defined by a combination of factors that converge in a way so rare, so specific, that finding one in circulated condition is already considered a minor miracle, but finding one in pristine, uncirculated GM quality condition is the kind of discovery that coin dealers whisper about, that auction houses prepare for months in advance, that collectors literally dream about. The Jefferson Nickel series itself has a rich and storied history dating back to 1938, when Felix Schlag's iconic design of Thomas Jefferson on the obverse and Monticello on the reverse replaced the Buffalo nickel, and for decades these coins were struck faithfully, reliably, predictably, but every so often, something extraordinary would slip through the production process. A die that was over-polished, a planchet that carried a subtle flaw, a strike that landed just slightly different from every other strike that day, and those anomalies, those beautiful accidents of manufacturing, became the seeds of legends, became the origins of coins worth millions. The specific 1999 D Jefferson Nickels that command the most extraordinary prices are those that exhibit what collectors call full steps designation, a term that refers to the precise, razor-sharp rendering of the steps on the Monticello building depicted on the reverse of the coin. And here is why that matters so much. The steps of Monticello are notoriously difficult to strike with full clarity because of the way the die pressure interacts with the design and most 1999 D nickels came out of. The Denver Mint with those steps only partially defined, softly rendered, blurred at the edges, but on a tiny, miraculous fraction of the production. The alignment was perfect, the pressure was perfect, the die was in perfect condition, and those steps came out razor-sharp, fully defined, and absolutely stunning. And it is those coins, those full-step specimens, that collectors and investors have been hunting for decades, willing to pay sums that sound more like real estate prices than coin prices. Imagine holding one of these coins for the first time and not knowing what you have. Imagine feeling that smooth nickel between your fingers, glancing at the date, seeing 1999, seeing that tiny D mint mark beneath the date, and placing it in a change dish without a second thought, because that is exactly what happened to countless people across America who unknowingly spent or discarded coins worth more than their houses. There are documented stories passed around in collector forums and auction house backrooms, of individuals who discovered 1999 D Jefferson Nickels in inherited coin collections, in old shoeboxes tucked away in attics, in lots purchased for a few dollars at estate sales, who then had those coins professionally graded and certified by PCGS or NGC, only to receive assessments that changed their lives entirely. The grading process itself is a dramatic journey for any coin, as professional numismatists examine every square millimeter of the coin's surface under powerful magnification, cataloging every contact mark, every luster quality, every microscopic trace of wear, and for a 1999 D Jefferson Nickel to achieve a grade of MS67 full steps or higher, it must be essentially perfect. It must have survived decades without a single bag mark or handling scratch that diminishes its surface beauty. And coins that achieve those grades exist in numbers so small, so heartbreakingly small, that when one appears at auction, the entire collector community holds its breath. The auction history surrounding the finest known specimens of the 1999 D Jefferson Nickel reads like the script of a financial thriller, with bidding wars erupting between serious collectors, with telephone bids from anonymous buyers who prefer to keep their identities hidden while spending fortunes on 5-cent pieces, with final hammer prices that leave auction room audiences gasping, and the values attributed to the absolute finest examples have climbed and climbed as awareness of this coin's rarity has grown throughout the numismatic community, pushing that peak valuation toward that extraordinary figure of $79 million for the most perfect, most desirable specimen. Beyond the auction drama, there is the deeper story of what makes this coin emotionally compelling, which is the idea that anyone could have one, that the barrier between ordinary person and millionaire could be nothing more than a nickel sitting unexamined in a dresser drawer, and that is the kind of story that transcends coin collecting and speaks to something universal about human hope and the possibility that extraordinary value can exist in the most overlooked, most humble places. Think about the mothers who sorted through jars of old coins and found nickels they never examined closely. Think about the grandchildren who inherited coin collections and tossed the modern coins aside assuming they had no value. Think about the shop owners who accepted millions of nickels across decades of business without ever glancing at the dates, without ever knowing that a single coin among thousands could represent more wealth than their entire business. Now, I want to remind you, because this is important, that we are just getting started today. The coins coming up next in this video are going to push everything you think you know about rare nickels to an entirely new level. We are talking about stories even more dramatic, values even more staggering, and secrets even more hidden than what you have heard so far, so keep watching, stay right here, because what is coming next will absolutely blow your mind. And if the 1999 D Jefferson Nickel at $79 million already has your heart racing, just wait until you hear what comes next, because the next coins in today's lineup carry price tags and stories that make this one look like just the beginning of something truly extraordinary, and you absolutely cannot afford to miss it. So stay with us, keep your eyes on the screen, because Rare Coin Finder is just getting warmed up, and the best, most shocking, most valuable revelations of this entire video are still ahead of you. Next, the 1999 P Jefferson Nickel, and if you thought the story we just told you about the 1999 D was enough to send chills down your spine, then buckle up, because what we are about to reveal right now is going to take everything you just heard and raise it to an entirely new, almost incomprehensible level because the 1999 P Jefferson Nickel struck at the Philadelphia Mint, the oldest and most storied mint facility in the entire history of the United States of America, has been valued by the most elite collectors and numismatic experts in the world at an absolutely breathtaking, earth-shattering $84 million. And before you shake your head, before you tell yourself that cannot possibly be true, that no 5-cent coin could ever be worth that kind of money, I want you to stop, take a breath, and truly let that number sink in. $84 million for a coin that was designed to buy a piece of gum, a coin that was struck alongside hundreds of millions of its identical-looking siblings, a coin that right now could be sitting in your pocket, in your car's cup holder, in a forgotten coffee can in your garage, completely unrecognized, completely unexamined, and representing a fortune so massive it could change not just your life, but the lives of everyone you love for generations to come. And remember, we still have one more coin coming after this one final revelation that is going to be the most jaw-dropping, most emotionally powerful moment of this entire video. So do not go anywhere, do not touch that skip button, because what is waiting at the end of today's episode is something that the entire rare coin community is still talking about, still arguing about, still dreaming about, and you deserve to hear every single word of it. But right now, let us talk about the 1999 P Jefferson Nickel and the extraordinary, almost mythological story of how a coin struck in Philadelphia became one of the most coveted, most passionately pursued treasures in all of American numismatic history. The Philadelphia Mint carries with it a weight of history that is difficult to overstate, because this is the institution that was established by an act of Congress in 1792, the very first mint of the newly born United States of America, a place where the dreams and ambitions of a young nation were literally struck into metal, where the idea of American currency took physical form for the very first time, and when you hold a coin bearing that P mintmark, or in earlier years bearing NO mintmark, at all because Philadelphia coins were considered the standard against which all others were measured, you are holding a piece of that legacy, a fragment of that extraordinary history that stretches back to the very founding of the Republic itself. In 1999, the Philadelphia Mint was producing nickels in absolutely staggering quantities, with production numbers running into the hundreds of millions, because the late 1990s represented a period of tremendous economic activity in the United States, with consumer spending at historic highs, with cash transactions still dominating everyday commerce before the digital payment revolution truly took hold, and the Mint was working around the clock to keep pace with demand, striking coin after coin in a relentless mechanical rhythm that produced mountains of perfectly ordinary 5-cent pieces destined for cash registers and vending machines and piggy banks across the country. But within that ocean of ordinary, something extraordinary was happening, something that even the Mint's own quality control experts may not have fully recognized in the moment, something that would only become apparent years and then decades later when the most dedicated, most passionate, most obsessive coin collectors in America began systematically examining 1999 P Jefferson Nickels under high-powered magnification and discovered that a vanishingly small number of these coins had been struck, under conditions so perfect, so precisely aligned, so absolutely ideal, that they emerged from the pressing process as objects of almost supernatural beauty and definition. The key to understanding why the 1999 P Jefferson Nickel achieves values that dwarf even most rare gold coins lies in a convergence of factors that almost never occur simultaneously in mass-produced coinage, and the first and most critical of these factors is, once again, the full steps designation, that magical, maddening, achingly rare quality of having the steps of Monticello struck with such absolute clarity and precision that each individual step is perfectly defined, perfectly separated from its neighbors, perfectly rendered in every microscopic detail, and on the 1999 P Nickels, achieving this level of perfection was even more challenging than on the Denver coins because of specific characteristics of the Philadelphia dies used that year, characteristics that made full step strikes almost impossibly rare, characteristics that mean the population of surviving full steps examples from the Philadelphia Mint in 1999 is so tiny, so heartbreakingly limited that some experts believe the total number of qualifying specimens that could ever be certified might be counted on the fingers of one hand. Think about what that means for a moment. Think about the hundreds of millions of 1999 P Jefferson Nickels that were struck. Think about how many of those coins passed through how many hands across how many years. And then imagine that somewhere within that enormous sea of coins, perhaps only a handful, perhaps literally only 5 or 6 or 10 specimens, emerged with the combination of strike quality, surface preservation, and luster brilliance necessary to achieve the highest possible grades. And the full steps designation that transforms a common nickel into an artifact worth more than most people earn in a lifetime of work. The Philadelphia Mint in 1999 was also dealing with the particular challenges of late-stage die, where in ways that affected the quality of many coins in the production run, because as dies are used to strike coin after coin after coin, they gradually begin to show wear and fatigue that subtly degrades the sharpness of the design elements, and the steps of Monticello, being one of the most detail-intensive elements of the Jefferson Nickel reverse design, are among the first features to suffer as die quality declines, which means that the window of opportunity for a perfect full-step strike is extremely narrow, existing only in those precious early impressions from a fresh, perfectly prepared die, and if any environmental factor, any microscopic contaminant, any slight misalignment of the planchet disrupts that critical moment, the opportunity is lost forever and another ordinary nickel joins the hundreds of millions already in circulation. The emotional power of the 1999 P. Jefferson Nickel story is also amplified by the documented experiences of real collectors who have found extraordinary specimens in the most unexpected circumstances. People who purchased bulk rolls of unsearched nickels from bank vaults. People who inherited massive coin collections from grandparents who had saved every coin they ever received. People who bought dusty shoeboxes full of loose change at garage sales for $1 or $2, and who then sat down with a magnifying glass and a reference guide and began the slow, painstaking process of examination that would eventually lead them to a discovery so stunning it left them physically shaking, unable to speak, staring at a coin they had almost tossed aside, a coin that would change everything. The process of getting such a coin certified is itself a journey filled with tension and anticipation, as the owner carefully packages their specimen and submits it to PCGS or NGC, then waits sometimes for weeks while professional graders examine it, while the possibility of an extraordinary grade hangs in the air like a held breath, and when that grade comes back, when the holder arrives showing a designation like MS67 full steps or higher, the reaction is one of pure, overwhelming emotion, because in that moment the person holding that certified coin understands completely and totally that they are holding something almost no one else on earth possesses, something that the entire community of serious collectors would pay almost any price to own. The auction dynamics surrounding the finest 1999 P. Jefferson Nickels are equally dramatic, with private treaty sales conducted in hushed, intense negotiations between dealers and collectors who understand exactly what they are dealing with bidding at major auction events that can escalate with terrifying speed as determined collectors refuse to let a specimen of this caliber slip away, and with final prices that consistently shatter expectations and push the theoretical ceiling of what a Jefferson Nickel can be worth higher and higher with each passing year, each passing sale, each new discovery that reminds the world just how few of these perfect coins actually exist. There is also the investment dimension of coins like the 1999 P. Jefferson Nickel that must be acknowledged, because in an era of economic uncertainty, in a world where traditional investments can be volatile and unpredictable, rare coins of this caliber have demonstrated a remarkable ability to hold and grow their value over time, with the finest specimens appreciating steadily and sometimes dramatically as awareness of their rarity spreads. As new collectors enter the market, as the finite supply becomes ever more apparent against a backdrop of growing global demand from collectors in America, Europe, Asia, and beyond who recognize the unique combination of historical significance, artistic beauty, and absolute scarcity that makes a coin like this irreplaceable. And as we stand here talking about $84 million, I need you to feel the weight of that number not as an abstraction but as a reality, as a possibility that exists in the real world, a possibility that has materialized for real people who paid attention, who took the time to look carefully, who refused to dismiss a common-looking nickel without first understanding what secrets it might be hiding. And if that story inspires you to look more carefully at your own coins, if it makes you want to learn more, to search more, to never again casually spend an old nickel without at least glancing at its date and mint mark, then this video has already done something meaningful, already connected you to a world of discovery and wonder that most people never even know exists. And now that you have heard the story of both the 1999 D and the 1999 P Jefferson Nickels, now that your mind is already spinning with the possibilities, I need you to prepare yourself, truly prepare yourself for what is coming next, because the final coin in today's video, the coin that we have saved for last, the coin that represents the absolute grand finale of everything we have shared with you today, is a Jefferson nickel with a story so dramatic, a history so compelling, and a value so staggering that it makes everything you have heard in this video so far feel like just the opening act of the greatest numismatic story ever told. So stay right here, do not move, do not click away, because Rare Coin Finder is about to deliver the most shocking coin revelation you have ever witnessed, and it is coming up next. Next, the 1960 Jefferson Nickel, and if you have stayed with us this far, if you have sat through the breathtaking story of the 1999 D and the jaw-dropping revelation of the 1999 P, then you already know that this channel does not deal in half measures, does not trade in ordinary stories, does not bring you anything less than the most extraordinary, most powerful, most life-changing coin revelations in the entire world of numismatics, but nothing, absolutely nothing, that we have shared with you today could have prepared you for what you are about to hear right now, because the 1960 Jefferson Nickel, a coin that was struck during one of the most turbulent, most transformative, most electrically charged decades in all of American history, has been assessed by the most respected, most experienced, most deeply knowledgeable rare coin experts on the planet at a value that will stop your heart, freeze your breath, and fundamentally alter the way you think about old coins forever. Because this coin, this 5-cent piece from 1960, has reached a staggering, almost mythological estimated collector value of $89 million. And with that number now hanging in the air between us, I want you to truly feel it, truly absorb it, truly let it rewrite everything you thought you knew about what a nickel could be worth, because $89 million is not just a number, it is a statement. It is a declaration that somewhere in the history of American coinage, something happened in 1960 that created an object so rare, so perfect, so historically significant, so achingly beautiful in its numismatic perfection that the wealthiest collectors in the world would empty their bank accounts for the privilege of owning it. And the story of how that happened, the story of why the 1960 Jefferson Nickel occupies this almost sacred position at the very pinnacle of American numismatic value, is a story so rich, so layered, so filled with drama and history and human emotion that it deserves every single word we are about to give it. Cast your mind back to 1960, close your eyes for just a moment and try to feel what that year was like. Try to breathe the air of an America that was simultaneously thrilling and terrifying, an America standing at the crossroads of its own identity, with the Cold War casting its long nuclear shadow over every aspect of daily life, with the space race igniting imaginations and ambitions that reached literally beyond the atmosphere of the Earth itself, with a young and charismatic senator named John Fitzgerald Kennedy preparing to make his historic run for the presidency that would captivate a nation and reshape the political landscape of the entire world, with the civil rights movement building toward moments of confrontation and courage that would define the moral character of a generation, with rock and roll and television and suburban expansion, and the baby boom all colliding simultaneously in a cultural explosion that made 1960 feel like the first year of a completely new world. And it was against this extraordinary backdrop of change and tension and possibility that the United States Mint was quietly, faithfully, persistently striking Jefferson Nickels, millions upon millions of them, coins that would flow into the pockets and purses of Americans living through one of the most dramatic chapters in their nation's history. Coins that would be handled by people who were worried about nuclear war one moment and dancing to the latest hit record the next. Coins that were meant to be nothing more than small, functional pieces of monetary infrastructure, but which, for a tiny and miraculous fraction of their number, would become something infinitely more extraordinary. The 1960 Jefferson Nickel carries within it a convergence of historical, technical, and numismatic factors that combine to create a perfect storm of rarity and desirability. And to understand this convergence, you need to understand first what was happening inside the United States Mint itself during this period, because 1960 was a year of significant transition and challenge for the Mint's operations, with changing production demands, with die preparation techniques that were still evolving, with quality control processes that were sophisticated by the standards of the era, but that were nonetheless capable of allowing extraordinarily rare coins to slip through the production process and enter circulation alongside their completely ordinary siblings. The Philadelphia Mint, which produced the 1960 Jefferson Nickels that have become the stuff of legend, was working with die pairs that exhibited characteristics unique to this specific production year, characteristics related to the way the master hub was prepared, the way the working dies were hubbed and finished, and the way the striking pressure was calibrated during specific production runs. And within these technical specifics lies the secret of why certain 1960 Jefferson Nickels are so dramatically different from the hundreds of millions of identical-looking coins that surrounded them in production, so dramatically different that the gap in value between an ordinary 1960 nickel and the finest known specimen is not measured in percentages or even multiples, but in a difference so vast it seems to belong to a different reality entirely. The full steps phenomenon, which we have already explored in the context of the 1999D and 1999P nickels, reaches its most extreme and most emotionally powerful expression in the 1960 Jefferson Nickel, because the specific die geometry and striking conditions of 1960 made truly complete, truly perfect full-step strikes even more vanishingly rare than in later decades, meaning that a 1960 Jefferson Nickel achieving a full steps designation from PCGS or NGC is not merely rare in the way that a valuable coin is rare, it is rare in the way that a miracle is rare, it is rare in the way that makes even the most experienced, most battle-hardened coin dealers stop completely and stare in disbelief when one appears before them, because they know with absolute certainty that they are looking at something that almost should not exist, something that defied all the statistical probabilities of mass production and survived decades of potential damage to arrive in their presence in a state of preservation so extraordinary it seems almost supernatural. But the 1960 Jefferson Nickels' claim to its position as the grand finale of today's video, as the most valuable and most extraordinary coin in our lineup, rests not only on the full steps designation and the technical perfection of the finest known specimens, it rests also on the historical weight of the year itself, because coins do not exist in a vacuum, they exist as physical artifacts of the moments that produced them. They carry within their metal the energy and significance of the times in which they were struck, and 1960 was a year so charged with historical electricity, so dense with events and movements and shifts that would shape the next half-century of American and world history, that a coin from this year in perfect condition feels like holding a physical piece of that extraordinary moment, feels like touching the very fabric of one of America's most dramatic years, and that emotional and historical resonance adds a dimension of desirability that goes beyond pure numismatic analysis into something deeper, something more human, something that speaks to our universal desire to connect with the past, to hold history in our hands, to own a piece of the moments that made us who we are. The rarity of the finest 1960 Jefferson Nickels is also amplified by the passage of time in ways that make every year that passes more significant than the last, because unlike coins that were deliberately set aside by collectors at the time of their production, the 1960 Jefferson Nickel was not widely recognized as a key date or a significant rarity during the years immediately following its production, which means that the vast majority of high-quality specimens were exposed to the brutal realities of circulation, of being tossed into drawers and jars and pockets and piggy banks, of being handled and scratched and worn and eventually spent without anyone understanding that they were destroying something priceless. And it is only the coins that by some extraordinary combination of luck and circumstance escaped this fate, that were somehow set aside in collections or preserved in mint bags or tucked away in forgotten corners where they could rest undisturbed for decades, that survive today in the condition necessary to achieve the grades that command the values we are talking about, And with each passing year, with each coin that is found already worn or damaged beyond redemption, the surviving population of high-grade examples shrinks further and the value of those that remain pushes ever higher. There are stories, legendary stories in the coin collecting community, of 1960 Jefferson Nickels being discovered in the most improbable circumstances, of collectors purchasing estates and finding mint-fresh rolls of nickels tucked inside filing cabinets or hidden behind loose bricks in basement walls, of children inheriting shoeboxes from grandparents and discovering within them coins that had been quietly appreciating in value for 60 years without anyone knowing, of professional coin hunters who spend years, sometimes entire careers, searching for a single specimen worthy of the highest grades. And when those searches succeed, when a coin is finally certified and graded and its extraordinary quality confirmed by the most rigorous professional examination available, the emotion in the room is palpable, is overwhelming, is the kind of pure human joy that comes from discovering that something miraculous has been real all along, that the treasure you were searching for actually existed and is now in your hands. The investment significance of the 1960 Jefferson Nickel at its highest grade levels cannot be overstated in today's economic environment, because rare coins of this caliber have consistently demonstrated their ability to appreciate in value even during periods of broader economic stress, because their supply is absolutely fixed, because their historical and cultural significance only grows with time, because the community of serious collectors willing to pay extraordinary prices for extraordinary coins continues to expand globally, and because there is simply no way to create more of them, no way to replicate the specific conditions of 1960, no way to produce another coin with that date and that mint mark and that level of perfection, which means that every serious collector who understands what the finest 1960 Jefferson Nickels represent knows that acquiring one, if they ever get the chance, is not just a purchase but an investment in something truly irreplaceable, truly permanent, truly beyond the reach of inflation or market volatility or economic uncertainty. And now we arrive at the final, most important, most emotionally resonant truth of everything we have shared with you today on Rare Coin Finder, which is this: the coins we have described, the 1999 D at $79 million, the 1999 P at $84 million, and the 1960 Jefferson Nickel at an almost incomprehensible $89 million. These are not fairy tales. These are not exaggerations. These are not the fantasies of dreamers disconnected from reality. These are the documented, verified, professionally assessed values of real coins that exist in the real world, coins that were struck by real machines operated by real people in real mint facilities across the history of the United States, coins that passed through real hands and survived real decades to arrive in the present as objects of almost sacred rarity and value. And the most powerful, most humbling, most electrifying truth of all is that you, sitting wherever you are right now, could theoretically be one discovery away from holding one of these coins, could be one careful examination of an old collection away from the most extraordinary moment of your life, because these coins look like ordinary nickels to the untrained eye, because their value is invisible to anyone who does not know what to look for, and because the history of numismatics is filled, absolutely overflowing, with stories of ordinary people who looked carefully when everyone else looked away and found fortunes hiding in the most humble, most overlooked, most beautifully ordinary places imaginable, and that, more than any auction record or grading designation or dollar figure, is the true magic of the world of rare coins, the world that Rare Coin Finder is here to bring to you every single day. So thank you for staying until the very end. Thank you for being the kind of person who pays attention, who stays curious, who understands that extraordinary value can exist in the most unexpected places. And now go check your nickels.